Got a document today for you. There's several documents in history that I have enjoyed spending some time in. I'm going to go with a really obvious traditional one, probably the most famous document ever written, the Declaration of Independence. And I've got with me a source that we have for our children. It's a scholastic, we've got it in paperback, and it's just the Declaration of Independence, the words that made America, illustrated and inscribed by Sam Fink. And it's really just the exact words. They're in very large print with a picture next to each to kind of illustrate and bring to life the words that are in the Declaration of Independence. I have a few kids that have memorized the first part of the Declaration. It's something that we read as a family, that we talk about, and it was something that unfortunately I was very unfamiliar with until well into my 20s or 30s. I did not have the luxury of a great education when I was younger, and I don't remember reading it in school, although perhaps we did, but it didn't really mean anything to me, and I didn't really understand it. And of course, there's a million sources for helping you understand the background and all about Thomas Jefferson and how he came to be the man that was going to write it, and his experience in writing it and pacing the floor on his violin and trying to put words to things. There's some some things that I've run across through the years as I've read other original sources. There are some words taken directly from John Locke that are right in the Declaration. There's also some phrases from Blackstone right in the Declaration, and it gives it's evidence of Jefferson's incredible liberal education and the kinds of people that he had read, and how those, even the exact wording, had made a large impression on him. Trail of abuses and God, nature's law and God and that kind of thing. And so it's the law of nature and nature's God. That's how it goes. Sorry. And anyway, it's a document you should know. And the first few sentences are worth memorizing and putting those in your mind. It's beautiful language, and it's profound concepts, and it's a document that has absolutely changed the world forever as the rights of mankind were put down. The document was signed, and then a revolution ensued to try to ensure those rights. Now, certainly there were a lot of Americans who did not have rights, who were slaves, and so it wasn't for everyone all the time, but it was for more people than there had ever been, more freedom for more people than there had ever been in history. And so, in that sense, it was a great accomplishment. So, the Declaration of Independence, of course, was the catalyst for the American Revolution. It was actually written and signed on the 2nd, and John Hancock signed it first. I don't know if this is exactly entirely true, or if it's just a tribute to the kind of man that Hancock was, but they say that he signed his name really large so that the king wouldn't mistake who he was. And that was the kind of man that he was. These men were staking their lives. It's important to emphasize that when you read the Declaration of Independence. And some of them, I want to highlight one individual in particular really quickly. The story of, let me remind myself because I didn't plan on saying this, but, Abraham Clark. He had some children. He signed the Declaration, and his children two of his boys were in the war, and they were captured. And he was sent a message from the British, and I can't remember if they had both his sons at this point or just one of his sons. Look up the story of Abraham Clark and his sons, because the sacrifices he and his wife made are incredible. And they just said, "We've got your son or sons, and we're going to starve him to death until you recant your signature on the Declaration." And he, of course, wanted to and debated that, but in the end was a man of principle, like these other men that signed this document, and he just said, "I cannot recant my honor. I know that these are true principles, and I know that we have rights, and you're stepping on them." And I think his son did end up escaping. I don't know that it took his life, but they went through some incredible things because Thomas Jefferson wrote this, and his name was on the hit list for the British as well. His home was broken into. His wife escaped with their child in the middle of the night in the cold, and that baby did die, and eventually he also did lose his wife. And so these men gave everything. Many of them gave their fortunes, and it's really, really worth your while to look at the list of signers and spend some time reading about their lives and the sacrifices that they made financially and professionally, and especially within their families. Several of them lost family members because they lost their homes, were destroyed, etc., etc. And they knew what they were signing. They knew what it could mean for them. The end is so beautiful. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Reading about the Declaration of Independence is one of the most inspiring things that you can do for really lighting a flame of patriotism in yourself and in your children. I'll never forget the year that I really hit the liberal arts hard. I really started to read the classics, and I started to learn about these individuals. I think it's when I read some of the books in the Real series, read through Real George Washington and read the Declaration and learned some of these stories, and I just wept in gratitude for the sacrifices that they made, that I enjoy what I enjoy today. And not just that, but my attitudes, my education, my freedom to pursue what I want to pursue, that I can get on this camera and talk to you today, is one of the millions and billions of outcomes of the choices that these individuals made. So light a fire under yourself for American history and for great men and women that have gone before. Read about Abigail Adams. I'll do one on. I'll link this to. Oh, what's it called? It's Cokie Roberts' book, Women in the Women of the Founding Mothers, I think is what it's called. And I'll do a post on that one. It's really worth reading too, although she has her strong opinions. I want to point out one more thing before I end this post. There's something in here, people like to wrench phrases from the Declaration of Independence. It's important to read all of these concepts and principles and ideas in their original context and to understand what they meant as a whole picture. People that are up in arms talk about the right to alter or abolish the government and these kinds of things. I want to point out one thing that has to do a lot with what we do here at the Ten Boom Institute, something that is not as well known or noticed about the Declaration of Independence, but which leaped out at me and has made a profound difference in how I see things. Now, not only are we all about principles in natural law through the classics, that's part of the, we have principles on this page, we have principles in the reading program, we learn about how to study for how to read for principles in the How to Read program. But it's also this important phrase that, we can alter or abolish the government, right? Those governments are instituted to protect the rights of men, and if they don't, whatever form of government is destructive to the rights of men, the people can alter or abolish it and institute a new government. We're so big on the alter or abolish phrase, we've forgotten what the next phrase is, because Jefferson gave us the key for building a foundation of any kind, and it's tucked away right here in the Declaration, and it's very often it's not talked about, and I want to bring it to the surface here because it's so important. If you want to institute a family, if you want to institute a business, if you want to institute any society, nonprofit organization, any bringing together of individuals into a governmental where there's government, where there's someone leading someone else, and there's self-government that's necessary, and there's leadership that's necessary. This is a principle of leadership, of government, and of society. He says if you're going to alter or abolish your government, that's fine, you have the right, but you have to institute a new government. Now listen carefully. Laying its foundation on such principles. Did you know that was in there? Did you ever notice that that's there? Lay the foundation on principles. Whatever that foundation is. If you want to institute anything, lay its foundation on principles and organizing its powers in such form. Have a form, have organization, have orderliness. Let everybody know these are the expectations, these are the consequences. Even in a family form, a family is a form of governance, of government. It's an organization where everyone has to know what their rights are and what their powers are, what they can do and what they can't do. Did you ever think about your family that way? It's true in business. It's true in all kinds of societal endeavors. Lay its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. If you want to be safe and happy in any organization, including in a nation, you need a foundation of principles. And then you need to organize powers in a form that's clear and easy to understand. And that's the catalyst for the Constitution. These men knew that this was a true principle, that principles are a true principle, and that if they were going to have a government that was going to work, they had to lay a foundation of principles, which was the Constitution. So there's so much hidden in there. You can learn things in the grievance section. You'll learn a lot about history, their frustrations, what their struggles were. There's information hidden there, and I'll bring that forward in other posts in the future when we talk about Tucker and when we talk about Jefferson and slavery. But I wanted to bring that to the surface and make sure that you caught how important it is that we lay everything we do on a foundation of principles. And it's right there from the founders to us. So the Declaration of Independence, probably the best and most important document written in the history of the world. This copy, if you want a lot of really marvelous, cute drawings and a lot of big text to walk through the Declaration of Independence with your children, or in your classroom with your students, the Declaration of Independence, the words that made America, illustrated and inscribed by Sam Fink from Scholastic Books. Thanks for joining me. If this was helpful, please pass it on to a friend. Like us on Facebook. Join our email list for all our updates and everything that's coming up in the future. Join our free book discussions. We'd love to talk to you about the books that we're reading together. And look out for future reading programs that we'll be releasing. And keep reading, keep studying, and build your character through the classics. We'll see you next time.